Welcome back to the All Ball Podcast, where it is all ball all the time. You are here with your host, Sean and Isaiah. This is episode number 42, and today we are going to be talking about both conference finals, what our thoughts are on them, and our predictions, I guess, for the rest of them. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the draft lottery and our Rockets getting the number 3 overall pick. But to start the episode off, as always, Isaiah, how you feeling today, man?
First and foremost, I'm unsettled with these conference finals. They've both managed to shatter my expectations, and even though the Warriors seem to be dominating their series so far, it's still been pretty good to watch. And then on the other end, we have the Celtics and Heat having another crazy battle, just like the Celtics had last series.
Is it fair to say that the playoffs have peaked in the first round so far?
Oh man, that's a crazy statement. I feel like that's not fair to say because there were more series happening.
Okay.
And so with that, there was more room for more excitement to take place.
The only reason I say that is because I saw that on Twitter, and it made me kind of think about the series compared to the conference final series.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking it's kind of true, but I was also thinking the same thing that you just said, that there's obviously more series to look at.
Exactly. I think really, if you want to say it peaked somewhere, I think it peaked in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
We had, even though it was a lot of ugly basketball, we had a close and competitive series with Memphis and Golden State. With Miami and Philadelphia, that was probably the weakest series because Embiid had health problems in the first couple of games. He came back. They got a couple of wins, but Miami got back on track.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm guessing they're thinking about like the Boston-Brooklyn series, even though that was a sweep, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Phoenix and the Pelicans wasn't a terrible series. Dallas and Utah wasn't bad either. And Memphis and Minnesota was pretty decent too. Even though it was like bad basketball at times, for the most part, it was still pretty entertaining to watch.
You see, that's why I say the second round was the most entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
Because with the first round, yeah, you had probably the most exciting series of this playoff so far with the Boston-Brooklyn series. And then, you were on point about the Phoenix and New Orleans series being pretty interesting in the Dallas-Utah series. But I think outside of that, the Milwaukee-Chicago series, honestly, the series should have been a sweep, but things happened and Chicago got one game. Same thing with Miami and Atlanta. That should have been a sweep, but things happened and Atlanta got one game. And it was both cases, it was a very close, barely edged out game.
Mm-hmm.
Philly and Toronto, really all of the Philly series, well, both of the Philly series were just, I feel like they were lackluster because James Harden was being James Harden. So they weren't as exciting as they should have been because it was, oh, what is Embiid or insert role player going to do? Because clearly James Harden's not going to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I just want to close out last series that happened was, well, oh, wait, no. You already talked about Memphis, Minnesota, but the last series that you didn't really talk about was Golden State and Denver. And with that one, it should have been closer than it was, but it really was an easily won series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you for the most part. And I think the second round was a really great, bracket of games too.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that with the first round, I don't think it's supposed to be as exciting as it was. So because it went over my expectations for the quality of games, even though, like I said, some of it was bad basketball. It was still interesting. So that's why I kind of have it tied up there with the second round as uh, I guess the best series so far.
Okay.
Yeah. But let's go ahead and get into the. Actually, I have to ask you this one question first before we go ahead and get into the conference final series.
Okay.
Did Phoenix just blow their best chance to win a championship?
I don't want to say yes because we don't know what could happen next season, who's going to be injured, what player movement is going to take place. So really, assuming that they don't try and remodel their roster somehow, I don't want to say that their chances are just gone, but I do have to say that this was a better chance than last year. And it's really bad that they blew this as badly as they did.
Yeah, I have to say that this was their best chance. Chris Paul, I think he's finally, like, Father's Time is finally catching up to this man.
Oh no. They blew Chris Paul's last chance to win a championship for sure. I'm just talking about like the core roster, the young guys.
Yeah, Chris Paul, I'm sorry, man. I don't think you're ever winning the championship. You gotta get like the old like 2017 Warriors around you to even have a chance. I think at this point.
Exactly. You got to pull a Nick Young and just sign to an obvious championship favorite team, get your ring, and retire.
Yeah, and then Aiden might be on the move too. I know there's a lot of speculation about him going to Portland, which I could see. They need some serious help over there. But yeah, other than like Devin Booker, they don't really. I mean, Mikhail's there, but you'd have to really expect a big jump from Mikhail to really see him. I guess as another star on the team. Like he's a great.
Yeah, he's a great role player, really great defender. But when you ask him to create off the dribble, that's where things get shaky.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I wanted to use the word role player to describe him because, like, he's a good player. I mean, on most teams,
even if he's really great, he's still a role player. He's not a star. So where does that leave him?
I don't know. I feel like there's a very good like spot between role player and star. I just can't think of the word for it. I mean, I don't want to use starter because anyone, like, we got guys like who's starting who's really awful.
Well, Daniel Tice was starting at one point.
Yeah, so exactly.
We can say that.
So, I guess let's go ahead and leave it as he's a really great role player.
Yeah, you see, and I don't like to think of role player as a bad word because personally, I define role player as somebody with a very specifically limited role that they perform on the team. Like, for instance, I see Klay Thompson as a really great role player, probably the best role player of all time, because what does he do? He shoots the ball. He doesn't really create for other people. He doesn't rebound. He shoots and he plays defense. And that is all he's there for. And he's absolutely amazing at it.
So was he a role player back in 2016, 2017 and all that?
Yeah, he was doing the same thing then. He wasn't the primary ball handler. He wasn't creating for people. He barely handled the ball at all, especially back then. He was just 3-and-D.
I can see where you're coming from, and I don't like disagree with you, but I can definitely say that if you said that to anyone, I think that's a pretty hot take.
Yeah, I understand that a lot of people probably won't agree with it, but if you understand the perspective that I look at role player from, I don't just see it like, oh, somebody who's not good enough to be a star. Like, yeah, Klay probably could be a star if he was on his own team, but he's not. So at the moment, or really just for his whole career, since he's been on Golden State his whole career, he's just the best role player of all time. That's that.
All right, all right. Well, I think that's a good point where we could go ahead and transition on a very spicy hot take right there. All right, so let's get into a series. Go ahead and pick whichever one you want to start with, and let's get into
Well,
it.
since we were talking about Klay Thompson, we can move to the Golden State
All right,
and Dallas series.
all right. So, what have you seen so far? The good, the bad, the ugly. Anything interesting in this series? Just go right on ahead.
Well, I'll go ahead and start with the good. Golden State's defense on the Mavericks, mainly in game one, their scheme was really good. It worked very well. They forced Luka into some tough situations, and it paid off.
Mhm.
Now on offense, that's where it really got crazy because of their great defense, there was a lot of fast break offense happening. So even though their shots weren't falling like they should have been, they were making up for it with just constant layups, 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 layups.
Mhm.
So you have that happening. Klay Thompson around the third quarter, I believe I think it was the third quarter. He just started going off. He was hitting everything, contested fades. I was honestly surprised to see Klay Thompson playing like that because I knew he had it, but I didn't think he had it to where he could go four in a row on contested fades. That was unbelievable. But
Yeah.
then, of course, we also had All-Star starter Wiggins doing his part, playing great defense, great individual defense on Luka, even outside of the scheme.
I want to laugh at the All-Star starter thing. Um, but I think he's done a good job in the playoffs for the most part. So
Mhm.
I won't laugh at it. I still think it's wrong, but I won't laugh at it. So yeah, I think you hit it like right on the head with the Warriors. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the Mavericks. I
Mhm.
think that especially in this last game where they blew the lead, it really showed that the lack of playmaking that they have when the ball's not in Brunson or Doncic's hands, or even Dinwiddie
Mhm.
for it really hurts them because I saw so many plays where it was just like Doncic passes to Bertans. Bertans passes back out. It's just like this real like in and out type of thing, and there's like no movement. So it may not even be the playmaking for the most part too.
Mhm.
It's these other guys that can't really help Luca.
Yeah,
I
and I
it's it.
think I think a lot of that comes down to the defensive scheme that the Warriors were running.
Mhm,
They really they pigeonholed Luka in a sense to where he had very limited options, especially the way they were swarming the driving lanes.
mhm,
But like it was kind of like a soft swarm, so they could still close out. And so it led to a really bad shooting game from Dallas as a team.
mhm.
And I think that's really what killed them in game one for sure. In game two, that's a whole nother issue.
Yeah, I think that especially like Dinwiddie. I think Dinwiddie needs to take more than 6 shots as a guy who's supposed to be that spark plug coming off the bench.
Hmm.
Uh, but I
You
know
know,
you.
on that same point that you just said, actually,
Uh,
the commentators made a really good point that an important thing to look for in this series is the Jordan Poole Spencer Dinwiddie sixth man matchup
mhm,
because that could make or break this series. Those are both guys who are expected to come into the game and provide decent playmaking and good scoring in a flash. And so far throughout these first two games, Jordan Poole has absolutely been winning that matchup.
I mean, yeah, that's definitely true. And Dinwiddie's been bad basically I would say 70% of the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, game one, he was all right. He shot 5 for 11, 17 points, but it doesn't compare to, Poole's 19 on better efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
And then especially this game where they blew the lead. I mean, Dinwiddie only
Yeah.
had 4 points compared to Poole's 23.
Yeah. 23 on 70%.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
Yeah, so Dinwiddie has to do something very dramatic, especially, in this game to give something off the bench that can help the starters, because no one else on that bench is really going to help them. Like Kleba doesn't really bring what Dinwiddie could bring. Bertans uh,
Bertans, if he
is a
actually,
bum.
yeah, if he actually played like he was supposed to, he could. But he got paid and then forgot how to play.
Yeah, Bertans is starting to creep up that list of like worst contracts in the league.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Um, but yeah, that's all I really had for this series. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about? I
There
guess for either
is.
teams. Okay.
There is. And it's specifically about Spencer Dinwiddie.
Okay.
And it's about this post that I saw sometime earlier this week, but the post was, who is one player that you were for sure was gonna be a star and
Mm-hmm.
didn't pan out? And for me, that player is Spencer Dinwiddie. I remember it was in Brooklyn. D'Angelo Russell was out. Spencer Dinwiddie was hitting the game winners. He seemed like he was really good at playmaking, and I don't know, he was just showing a lot of promise, and it's never panned out between injuries and getting traded.
Wow. Okay. I'd have to think about that one, like the whole rest of the episode, to give you an answer, because that's a really good question right there.
Mm.
Um, I was gonna say something, and then you mentioned that, and it kind of slipped my mind again. Um, but yeah. So was there anything else other than that there?
No, that's it.
Okay. So let's go ahead and move on to the Boston and Miami series. Uh, Good, bad, ugly. Again, same thing.
Well, first and foremost, as expected, the good of this series is the defense.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've had some really impressive defense on both sides here, especially in game 3 where they had Jimmy Butler and Jason Tatum on clamps. So I think that's a really impressive feat there, to have both of the guys who have been spearheading these two playoff juggernauts in prison basically. That's a really impressive outcome there.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the amount of steals that Miami had in Game 3, which was 19 total.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's crazy.
Yeah, and it's even crazier when you compare it to the fact that the Celtics only had 2.
Yeah, some teams don't even get like, you know, 19 steals in half of a series. They got it in one game, which is insane.
Yeah, that's really unbelievable. And it wasn't even like, oh, one person was pulling a TJ McConnell or something and carried the number. Like, this was a fairly spread out wealth of steals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even uh what do you call it? Like Victor Oladipo, I know that that's his thing, is
Mm-hmm.
defense, but it's kind of surprising to see him get like 4 steals. Even like Bam getting 4 steals, that's insane.
Yeah, that Bam getting 4 steals is something different, especially when you see that he only got 1 block. Oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that just feels like there's a glitch in the matrix there.
Yeah, man has a pickpocket on Hall of Fame.
But back to Victor Oladipo, like you said, it shouldn't be as surprising as it is, considering that I believe he was a steals champion while he was in Indiana. So He definitely is known to pick pockets, but I think it's just a matter of we've seen the ups and downs of his career now
Hmm.
since Indiana, especially considering that he stopped through Houston. So we got to see him personally.
Right.
And I just think that to see him somewhat show flashes of that form on either end of the floor is always positively surprising to see.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was gonna say too. I feel like at this point in his career, whatever you can get out of Victor Oladipo is basically good. As long as he's not like shooting, like 2 for 8 and like 6 points or something like that, then you're basically getting whatever he has left.
Mm-hmm.
But for Boston, I'm sorry, no, for Miami, is there any update on Jimmy Butler's injury that you've heard of yet?
I have not actually.
Okay. Um, do you think that Miami, with what they have left, if Butler has to miss games, can still pull the series out?
Well, considering that they pulled this game out with pretty much no Butler,
Hmm.
like when the time that he did play, he wasn't super impactful. And then he went out after only 20-ish minutes, I think, 19, 20.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he went out after only 19 and a half minutes, and they still managed to pull this one out in a close one. So I want to say that it's definitely doable, but where I think the issue lies is that there was a lot of stepping up from other people on this team in this game.
Hmm.
Like, how often are you going to get 17 out of PJ Tucker, 16 out of Max Struess, and 31 out of Bam?
Right. I mean, they're definitely making up for Hero's awful game.
Yeah, that whew, 4 for 15 is insane.
Yeah, he pulled a oh, what do you call it? I can never remember this guy's name, but he's like I'd rather be 0 for 31 than 0 for
Oh, like Dion Waiters.
on waiters. Because that means I'll stop shooting.
Quite possibly the worst NBA quote of all time.
Yeah, I think that's definitely up there. Um, so I have to ask you because you said that it's still doable for the Heat if Butler misses some games.
Mm-hmm.
Does this say more about Miami's role players and their roster, or does this say more about Boston's ability to win whenever they have this advantage?
I think it absolutely says more about Miami's roster and their coaching scheme as well. Just their whole culture of their team since LeBron left in 2015
Mm-hmm.
has been about team ball, guys stepping up and just kind of everybody playing their role as best they can. And it's especially been that way since Jimmy Butler came.
Mm-hmm.
Since he's been there, it's always been he's going to be the focal point of our offense, and everyone around him is just going to absolutely dominate in their role. Whether it's Bam playing like a all defensive guy and doing his other like minor playmaking things, his rebounding, and getting some decent scoring out of him,
Mm-hmm.
even though they're not doing much with him this playoffs. In prior runs, Duncan Robinson being an elite sniper. As of right now, you have Kyle Lowry, who's taking a good portion of that playmaking role, and he's going to take those charges for the team. PJ
Mm-hmm.
Tucker taking a lot of that defensive load as well. So I think it says a lot about their roster construction and their coaching scheme.
You mentioned Duncan Robinson. I know we talked about it. I believe I don't know if it was last episode or 2 episodes ago, but
I think it was
about
last episode.
yeah, you know what I'm talking about him being
Mm-hmm.
a good weapon to use against the Celtics because of how they give up a lot of open shots.
Wait, no. That was against the Bucks. Wait, but
I'm
did they
sorry.
end up winning? Yeah.
Okay. Well, Okay, well then never mind because that's completely how could I put it? Just doesn't matter if it's against the Celtics
Yeah.
then. But yeah, he's still not getting playing time though. Do you think that he should be getting any kind of playing time? He got 4 minutes.
Um, I feel like in this series, I don't want to say no, but at the same time, saying yes, who knows how that could mess with the rotations. Maybe Boston just they take advantage of him on the defensive end too easily or something.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I don't want to. Again, like we said last time, I'm gonna trust Eric Spoelstra on this. He's a high level NBA coach who has the accolades to back it up. So I'm not gonna act like I know more than him.
Hmm.
But I personally I think that maybe give him one game of decent minutes to see what he can do.
For me, I'm gonna have to say no. Don't play him just because if your whole identity is defense, like the Heat are,
Mm-hmm.
um, you don't want to throw someone out there who is one of the worst defenders. Like you already have Hero out there who's not that great of a defender,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think you want to throw Robinson out there with him or
Oh
just
no.
have that other bad defender out there at any time.
Okay, yeah. I think that's fair since they have Victor Oladipo. Yeah.
Hmm.
Because why would you throw out a awful defender when you could throw out Oladipo, who, as we saw last game, can get you 4 steals?
Right. Okay. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about this series or any of these teams?
I don't think so.
Okay. I just want to say one more thing.
Okay.
Look at that man, Grant Williams, getting 39 minutes in a playoff game.
Man, Grant Williams is probably, I would probably give him the MIP award for this playoffs because honestly, I thought of Grant Williams as a joke for the most part before this year.
Hmm.
But between him lighting us up in a game that they played against us and just the way that he stepped up in these playoffs, Grant Williams has pleasantly surprised me.
Yeah, he has me too. Um, it's crazy just because it feels like it's almost out of nowhere. Like you said, he was almost like a joke from last year to now being a basically sixth man
Mm-hmm.
on a very championship caliber team. So good for him. Good for him. Just stop doing it against the Rockets.
Please, please, we don't need any more Grant Williams games. We already suffer enough as a team. We saw the record.
Yeah. Speaking of the Rockets and suffering, would you like to move on now to us getting the third overall pick?
Yeah, let's move.
All right. So we got the third overall pick. Orlando got the first, and OKC got the second. The lottery balls obviously did not drop in our favor, but we still fell within the top three, within a top three heavy draft. What do you think is the best outcome for us to, how could I put it? Which guy would you like to see fall to three?
Um, in terms of the person that I think would best fit our team, I
Mm-hmm.
think I'd want to see Chet fall to 3, but that's probably the one that's least likely to fall that far.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I haven't kept up with Jabari Smith too much, so I really don't know much about him. So that leaves Paolo to fall to 3. So if we can get him, I'll take that. That's another young athletic guy to add to our roster of young athletic guys.
Mm-hmm. And at this point, for me, I'm happy with anyone we get of those big three.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I am scared though for Chet just because, and I know this is a pretty common thing out there, but it does look like it can be true that he might be the have the biggest bust potential.
Oh yeah,
I don't.
yeah. I think out of the main three, like again, I haven't kept up with Smith too much, but I know a little
Mhm.
bit. But out of those three, I think between his thin frame, his interesting play style in the sense that he really likes to pride himself on doing almost everything on the court. You'll see him do some dribbling. He'll shoot a lot of threes. So I
Mhm.
think with that all around play style that he's trying to enforce and his thin frame, it could be really hard for him to really establish a good spot in this league because he could very easily end up like another Mo Bamba or Bol Ball.
Right, and it almost feels at times like he's trying to be a copy of KD because of, like you said, skinny frame, kind of does everything,
Mm-hmm.
but he doesn't have the quickness that KD has.
Yeah, and
Or
that's why I think Bol Bol is a good comparison for him.
it's almost like Christian Wood. Like Christian Wood, a lot of people have said he's trying to be like KD, but Christian Wood, obviously, other than just talent alone, doesn't have the fluidness to be KD.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, so like I said, I'd be happy with any of them. But I think if we were to get Chet at 3, I'd be a little worried about what he actually could turn out to or not turn out to in the future.
You see, but here's the thing about why I would be okay with Chet coming to us
Hmm.
because at the end of the day, as long as he's not injury prone, if he's still like if he just doesn't live up to his super high potential, I think he still fits our team well. Because at the end of the day, all we necessarily need him for is just to be that paint presence, blocking shots, anchoring our defense.
Hmm.
We have plenty of scorers on the team and people who could be potential scorers as well. So
Hmm.
at that point, we just need a good defensive anchor. So if he doesn't pan out as this superstar that people are expecting him to be, then that would still work out fine for us.
So if we get Chet, what happens with Shingun then?
I
Do
think
we run them together?
I think we run them together because assuming that Chet can at least decently shoot, then okay, he stretches out on the offensive end, and then on the defensive end they swap.
Hmm.
Even though I really don't like the idea of having Shingun guarding the perimeter, but
Yeah, I don't either. He's looked very funny when guarding the perimeter.
yeah,
Very
and
questionable.
but yeah, at the end of the day, him guarding the perimeter and guarding the paint isn't necessarily all that great either way. I think if he guards the paint, he has to guard the paint in a Giannis type of way where he's just a help side guy.
Hmm.
Yeah, because even if he's our straight up primary paint defender, he's not necessarily vertical enough to be enough of a threat against certain players. And against, actual big men, a lot of them, they're stronger and more athletic than him, so they can easily get a spin on him maybe or something.
Right. And a lot of that too depends on what he actually does during the summer. I know that a lot of players on our team have been putting in a lot of work already. Like KPJ, I know has been putting in a lot of work. Kenyon Martin Jr. has been putting in a lot of work. I've seen they've been posting it, or I've seen reporters talk about it. Um, so what do you think about Raphael Stone saying that there's a chance that they might trade this pick?
Mm, I feel like it would be best if they were to make that kind of movement around draft night
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like depending on who falls to third
Mm-hmm.
really affects who we would really affects how we should move about using this pick. Because depending on who's third, either I think we should take it, or if it's somebody else, like again, I don't know enough about Jabari Smith to feel confident in us picking him. So if he's the one that falls to third, I probably would prefer that we trade it.
Mm.
So I like that he's open to the idea. I'll say that for sure.
Okay. And I just want to make this really, this quick scenario real quick. Since you don't know much about Jabari, I think this is a very questionable draft in the sense that we don't know who's actually going to go first. So let's say Jabari goes first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's say OKC does something crazy and drafts Jaden Ivey second,
Mm-hmm.
even though that'd be
And then that leaves
crazy.
us. Yeah, that leaves us with Chet or Paolo to pick from.
Yeah. Who are you picking?
I think, like I said, I just think Chet fits our team better. I think that if we took Paolo, he would fit with the style of play that we have. Just a lot of young, athletic, above the rim guys.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he would fit in that essence. But I feel like personally, in terms of what we need, Chet would be the better fit.
Okay. I could agree with that too. I think, like you said, Chet is the more of what we need, but Paulo does fit more of what we already have.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think the fact that we could trade this pick is interesting. Like I've talked to you before, Christian Wood and the third overall pick for like Wiseman and Moody is something I've heard about, but like we discussed, are the Warriors willing to throw away their future for something that it doesn't look like they really need?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then also just even on our side, I don't necessarily like us going for that, like I said, because Wiseman's injury history, the fact that 2 years into career he's barely played. So yeah, I'm really concerned about that, and I'd hate to throw away a top 3 pick for somebody who barely plays.
Mm-hmm. What would you think about and I have no clue how this would match up financially, but or if this even could match up financially. Just off the top of my head right now, would the third overall pick for a sign and trade of Ayton?
Whoo, man, that's kind of a crazy one. Oh, that is a crazy one. I would like that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that he would very well fit those needs that we need as a team.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a near all-star caliber player, so
And
no complaints for me on that one.
yeah, and just thinking about the financials a little bit more, he's probably going to sign more than what Christian Wood is signed for.
Mm-hmm.
So we're probably going to have to throw Gordon in there, which is 100% fine with me.
That even better. Again,
Yeah.
I like that he took that mentorship role. He played some good basketball for us, but at the end of the day, he's not the future of this team.
Yeah, but I would also not be surprised if we also had to throw maybe one more pick in there just because he is a former number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, and on top of that, he was in the finals last season.
Yeah.
So just that accolade alone really gives him some major value.
Mm-hmm. But I think that'd be a good thing for us. But it also depends, what the Suns want to do. If there actually is this turmoil that's happening in Phoenix that I've heard rumored about between Booker and Ayton and CP3.
Mm-hmm.
So it just depends on them, and are they willing to give up what Ayton brings on defense for what Christian Wood brings on offense?
Ooh, I don't know. I don't think they do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When you really think about it, I think that I really don't believe that Phoenix would make that decision. The only way I could see them doing that is just if Ayton, he's guaranteed going to walk. Because then at that point, you got to take what you can get in order to get something instead of trying to scramble for scraps in free agency to see who you can get to fill that spot.
Right, you're probably not going to get much because of the contracts that are already signed with I think McHale's contract kicks in this year, his extension, and then Chris Paul's and Debo's are pretty hefty. But yeah, that's all I really have for the Rockets and their third overall pick. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about regarding that?
No, that's it.
All right. Well, I think this is a good point to go ahead and end this episode. If you like the episode, go ahead and like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. Isaiah, any last comments?
You know the usual. Don't forget to share the podcast with as many people as you can.
All right. We will catch you on the next episode.